Thank you, all my friends, and I feel more like your family after knowing you for, about 10 years of coming to national committee meetings now and knowing you from the four corners of the country, and it's just so fun to have you here in our own home territory, neck of the woods, and some local folks besides. And yes, as Jim said, thank you to a number of local people like Tom Hayes, our Spokane County Chairman, who got the color guard, and Holly Yearout, who I saw in here earlier but is probably off working somewhere, and arranged a lot of the things and arrangements for the tables tonight, and just a lot of other people have done a lot of things to put it together and make it happen and make it a success. And I'm hoping you're going to meet a lot of other local people over the next day and a half here. And we've been advertising on the radio and even have a special half-hour infomercial going out at 12:30 today over local radio that a local radio station owner just blessed us with yesterday. So we're inviting even more people to come tomorrow. So thank you again for being here in a very special place, we feel, in the inland Northwest, not just the Northwest, but a very special place that not the whole world knows about yet, here in the inland empire of the wheat fields and plains and prairies and mountains and forests of Idaho and Montana. And as I've been considering this for some time, I've been thinking about what to say to all of my friends as we gather here. And the thing that's kept coming back to me is, why the Constitution Party? Why are we here? Why am I in this? And I don't know if you're like me and from time to time maybe get discouraged or second guess your actions and start to wonder, well, what's it all about? What's at the root of it? And I've even been praying for some time about really what's the root of our political activism? What's the point of it? Not are we just here to win? Is that it? Are we just here to win elections? Or what's really behind it? What's the root of our purpose here so that we can get focused? And I realize that when people ask us why the Constitution Party, what they really mean is, well, why plug your effort into something that isn't big and powerful and has lots of money and can win? Well, what they really mean then when they're asking us why the Constitution Party is they mean that to them the primary thing is winning. Isn't that what it's all about? And I realize there's something that's gone wrong in what's called the conservative movement, which we know we're not conservatives, we know we're constitutionists in this room, and we know there's a difference. And if you listen to the speakers over the next 2 days, you'll find out the difference. But to the world out there, we're part of the Christian conservative right, and in a sense they're right in that our party's platform is the platform of conservatism. Even though that movement has digressed and kind of gone afield on its own course. Yet people ask, why the Constitution Party? Well, I've looked around at the conservative movement and have asked myself, well, where has it gone and what has it done? Well, it's true, they can win elections. We've watched. In fact, over my voting years, I've watched the conservative movement score many big victories at the ballot box, that is. Unfortunately, I haven't seen one victory for the principles of conservatism. As I've watched over the years, from electing George Bush the first to being part of the Republican Revolution and helping in my district, just over here in Spokane, we helped kick out the then Speaker of the House and replaced him with a Republican, and thought that was a big victory. And then conservatives elected George Bush, and now conservatives have elected the Tea Party Congress or Tea Party House. And conservatives have scored lots of political victories, winning at the ballot box. But I've got to ask, has conservatism won? And as I look back over all those political victories at the ballot box, I don't see one victory for conservatism. In fact, in every case, the principles of conservatism have suffered defeat at the hands of the people that conservatives have elected. And I start to question why. Just bad luck, I guess. You know, conservatives have bad luck. Oh, well. And I know there's lots of natural reasons that we look to. We talk about, well, there's compromise. Well, conservatives need to be re-educated in constitutional principles. And, well, there's the power brokers in Washington, and they manipulate and control people once you get there and cut deals. And all these things are true. They're all factors. They're all ways that it all manifests. But I've got to think there's something more behind it. How can it be that a body of people making up what appears to me to be the majority of the population of a nation can have a stated system of values and beliefs and say this is conservatism, this is what we're for, and put their efforts together time and time again to elect people at the ballot box, get their hands on the political power, the reins of power to run a country. And every single time they do that and get that power in their hands, the power goes off and produces something other than what they sought it for in the first place. There's just something not right about this picture. It's more than just bad luck. I contend there's something more going on behind the scenes that conservatism has failed to stop and think about and address. You can't repeat the same thing over and over and get the same results and not catch on that there's some kind of law at work. In the natural realm, we repeat experiments in the laboratory, and boy, if it turns out the same every time, we realize we've discovered a law. There's laws of nature governing this. Well, there are laws governing other things. There are spiritual laws governing the whole universe and superintending over even the affairs of men. And we fail to realize you can't violate those laws over and over again and get away with it. You can't violate those laws and expect success. Yes, we can just go out and seek raw political power and get our hands on the power, but the power still fails to produce what we want. It's as though conservatives have gone out time and again and gotten the political power in their hands without the spiritual power of blessing on it that would enable it to produce the good fruit that they intended. And that doesn't mean there's wrong intentions. It means we've fallen into some traps along the way. And I contend that one of the things I've seen conservatives falling for, as I've stepped back a pace or two at times and listened to what I hear coming over my radio, listened even to the conversations I hear in the hall after church, and I realize there are wrong motives and attitudes that have gotten into conservatives. And all of us, I started out there. It's taken, 10 or 15 years of being taught and trained by speakers at these events and Constitution classes to start to see a different vision. But the chief thing I hear among conservatives, Christians, those professing conservative values, the chief thing I hear motivating people out there is fear. They're afraid of the liberals. They're afraid, they're going to come get my guns. They're going to raise my taxes. They're going to this, they're going to that, New World Order. Well, I realize all those things exist, and I'm not denying it. We should be aware of that. But I'm concerned that I see Christians and conservatives fixating on the evil in the land, staring into the face of it so long that we start to react with fear of the evil rather than faith in God, rather than faith to just do what he says is right. And since when does God reward fear? I'm trying to remember, aren't there something like 100 prohibitions against it in the Bible that I've read saying, fear not? And in other places, fear not, believe only. Trust in the Lord with all your might, not just a little bit, not just, when the conservatives are in power. Trust in him all the time. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, or another rendering of that I like is seek first his kingdom and his right ways of being and his right ways of doing. Now, I'm told that's first. I'm sorry, I've looked around and I see the conservative movement and Christians today seeking victory at the ballot box first, because we've let fear drive us to thinking that we need political power to save us. Well, I'm told we're supposed to look to God to deliver us. That comes first. And holding to the standards that he declares, that comes first. I'm concerned we've traded some things here, and through fear we've started to look to political might to save us and are willing to compromise anything we have to get our hands on it, and have bowed at the altar of political expediency, thinking this thing called political power can save us. And it hasn't, because we've gotten our hands on the power. That is, we as the conservative right wing of America have gotten their hands on the power over and over and over and over. And every time that power has just gone off and increased taxes and brought in the New World Order and everything that we thought we were fighting against. So where did we go wrong? And I contend that it's time to get our priorities in order. It isn't a matter of, I guess politics doesn't work, we'll just give up on it, we'll stop voting, we'll just go home and pray and maybe the rapture bus will come save us. That isn't what I'm talking about. It's about priorities. Well, like Jesus said, it's seek first the kingdom. He didn't say seek only, that there's nothing else in life. It's just, what are the priorities? What comes first? Have no other gods before me. There's nothing you bow to, serve, or let dictate your agenda before him. And I'm concerned that Christians, the church in America, is in violation of that first and most fundamental principle and spiritual law, that we're starting to look to other gods to save us and worship at their altar in the hopes they'll give us political power to save ourselves. So what would the right priorities be? Well, I think we already said it. What is that first commandment? We look to him first and his right ways and his right standards, and this is the only standard and the only thing that's going to guide our actions. In fact, that one verse I quoted about trust in the Lord with all your might and lean, what's the next statement? I see a preacher nodding his head. He knows what it is. Trust in the Lord and lean not unto your own understanding. That is, even your own understanding of saying, yeah, but if we pull this string, if we compromise this thing, we'll get the political power. No, he said don't lean on that understanding. Just trust in him and do what he says is right. And I contend this is the first and primary priority that all of our political activism is going to have to be guided by, or else every time we get our hands on that political power, yeah, we have the might of man, the arm of the flesh, but no blessing or power on it to be able to produce the good fruit that we want. And we're going to have to put first things first. We're going to have to put God back in his right place. And of course, is it that, well, then after that we seek political power to save ourselves? No, there's a second commandment. And what is it? Well, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, what's that got to do with politics? Well, I think it's got a lot to do with it when we really start to understand what really is love. It isn't this weak, wimpy emotionalism, I heart my cat bumper sticker mentality. That isn't what Jesus went to the cross for. At its root, just to get to the chase on this, what I see love being is really the revelation of what value does the one who created you place on the one you call neighbor, and even place on the one that you call enemy. He's made by the same maker, and the same maker places the same value on him that he places on you. Well, what would that really require of us? Well, when we really catch a revelation of God's love or the value that he places on our fellow man, it soon begins to compel us to say the key thing in life is what is good for my neighbor? What is in his best interest, not just my best interest? What does he need to be blessed, to be safe, to prosper, for there to be blessing in the land for my neighbor in his house? Of course, we can't really answer this until we start to go back to step number one. Seek God and ask him, well, what are your right ways? What are the right principles? What are the right values? What are the right priorities? And as we seek, as I've sought over 10 or 15 years of political activism and going to lots of Institute on the Constitution classes and other things, eventually the vision and understanding of the proper role of government has come to me, and I begin to see and understand what God really intended for that institution to be, so that it would be a blessing to my fellow man, so that it would be a blessing to my neighbor, so that it would be a terror to evil works, and it would reward the good and secure the blessings of liberty. And I begin to understand the principles that go with that, the political policies that would accompany that. But then once you begin to see and understand these things, well, now all of a sudden commandment number 1 and number 2 start to kick in and say, now, if you know what is best, if you know what is right and will bring blessing on the land, doesn't this commandment to love your neighbor, doesn't this commandment to love your fellow man, doesn't this commandment to honor God start to compel you to political action? In fact, it actually requires you now to go get in the face of political powers and might and governmental power and institutions and say, whoa, wait a minute. You're not free to just do what you want. There's one who made you. There's one who you answer to. And I'm going to get in your face, and I'm going to demand you bow your knee and fulfill the purpose that your rightful owner demands of you, and you're going to be a blessing to my neighbor. You're going to secure blessings of liberty for the land. You're going to be a terror to evil works. You're going to reward the good. Now it becomes time for political activism. So there is a right place for it. I'm just concerned that the church in America today has forgotten that right place, gotten our eyes off of it, gotten our eyes on the big bad liberals. From the conversations I hear after church, you'd think Nancy Pelosi is 15 feet tall and breathes fire. We're running in fear. We're running in fear and looking for some politician to save us. No, we're supposed to be running towards God in faith and saying, what are your standards? What do you prescribe so that you will be pleased with us, so that you will be pleased to endow our political endeavors with your power to bring forth a blessing and bring forth good fruit that will bless the inhabitants of the land. And I've come to realize this is really the right place for political activism. These are the priorities and principles that I'm determined to have my political activism guided by. And that brings me full circle back to, well, why the Constitution Party? Well, it isn't because I think the Constitution Party is so big and powerful that it can save me from the evil liberals and Democrats, but it's because as I look around in the land, there is really only a handful of organizations, political activities that really comport with these priorities and these values that I can plug myself into and work through without compromising these things. And of those few organizations, the Constitution Party is the only one fielding candidates for office. So, in my view, there is something higher than winning. There's something more important than winning at the ballot box. It's about standing for the right thing. Yes, I hope Constitution Party candidates win, but there's something more important. It's about raising up a standard and calling our fellow countrymen back to that standard so that they can be blessed. That's my reason for the Constitution Party. I hope it will be yours as well. And again, I thank you for being here, and I just look forward to spending the next 2 days all being encouraged together by people of like mind who can help set before us, I think, a right vision of where we need to be going and what this cause needs to be about. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Jim.